Welcome to Hack Your Career. I'm Keith Wilson, the Director of Cybersecurity Education for AttackIQ. In this live stream, we're trying to introduce you to all sorts of careers in cybersecurity by sharing the stories of the people behind those careers. Today's guest is Senior Strategy Lead for Cybersecurity, Manageability, Services, and Supply Chain for Dell Technologies, John Boyle. Welcome, John.
Hey, Keith, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. I got my
Good.
coffee. Ready to go.
Yeah, we were talking a bit before the show, and I was complimenting your shirt. I love the AC/DC TCP/IP parody theme, and the shirt's been around for a while, but it's still one of my favorites.
Yeah. I kind of, we all get like a ton of shirts, but I have some of my favorites. This one, and then Harness, which is harness.io. They have the get ship done, like shipping things.
Oh, okay.
And then, but as I was telling you, it's a little bit colder in Austin today, which is a relative term. And I had my official Og Dog tie-dye t-shirt. It's the only place I buy my tie-dyes from because he's a total deadhead. And he makes the best he has for 30 years. And I was like, well, probably not good for the camera thing. So I had to replace the tie-dye with this.
Well, I appreciate you being on the show today. And like all of our other guests, we're going to talk about a bit about your career, what you're doing now, how you got started, what your background is, all of that sort of stuff. But to unwind that, I want to kind of go back to where I think a lot of people generally think where most of their careers start, and that's the college, right? The training you take for the career path that you pick. And like our last guest, you don't have a degree that is a straight line into security. So how'd you find yourself working in security? How did that happen?
So my story is, we all make different college decisions, and I grew up in Seattle, Washington, big Washington Husky fan, grew up going to the games, my dad, and I was not one of those ones that wanted to go across the country to go to college. I really love Seattle, love the Northwest. It's beautiful. So, when in my choice, I really didn't want to go to a huge university because, I graduated a year young and wanted to go somewhere where the classes are smaller. So I went to Seattle University, which is a fabulous Jesuit university on Capitol Hill. And, you got to think back to the late 80s. I mean, weren't really surfing the internet back then, Keith.
Right.
So I think, the holistic education I got, and my focus was on journalism, film communication, because that's some of the things I was exposed to growing up by some teachers in high school, like my teacher, Mrs. Pat Brayman. Film is literature, right? A class in high school. Made my first animated film in 6th grade from Mrs. Buthel's class, right? And all these names are still there.
Mm-hmm.
So I got into Seattle University, and it was true liberal arts education. We took philosophy, biology, history, theology, film classes, journalism classes, and one of the things I really learned to do was write. I did take one CS class where we, did a lot of DOS stuff, but at that point, it wasn't like a dedicated track. I mean, there wasn't a cybersecurity track. There wasn't
For sure
much of a CS track, So I think it was just kind of learning how to think, right, and learning how to work with people, and learning, and I was fortunate to go to a university with a very diverse student body. We've had just a lot of great people from all over the world, a lot of different backgrounds and experience, and so that was the foundation, was working and learning with a real diverse set of minds and backgrounds, learning how to think and apply your thoughts to pretty much anything you can work on.
Well, yeah, the degree was in communication. So you took that degree and you got a job with it. But I'm sure that first job wasn't cybersecurity.
No. And I kind of have a different outlook on degrees. I think degrees are something you should look back and learn from. They're not something you should always lean on. Right?
Sure. Yeah.
Like, it's not like, hey, 30 years later, here's my degree. This gets me into a role.
Yeah, but 1 year after you get it, all you got is that degree to lean on.
Yeah. So and one of the things is that I was really good in high school at reaching out to mentors, right? And it's one of the things is that if you don't ask somebody about being a mentor, or can you introduce me to somebody because I'm interested in this? I mean, lots of us in the industry and all over industries, are willing to talk to anybody who's excited about something, because we all started from the same spot, right? And so I think finding a mentor was always key. And then,
so did I hear that right? Did you say you had mentors when you were in high school?
Well, in college, yeah.
In college, okay.
Yeah.
And even that's pretty young. I don't know too many college students that are out there going, you know what, I need to find a mentor. I need
Yeah.
to, I don't hear too many college students think that way. I don't even think I thought that way in college.
I didn't think that way until I went to college, and then they had like this program where they assigned you a mentor, and it was weird because my mentor ended up being the president of the university, so that was a good outlook on like a lot of things, right? And so, my first job my first job in college was high rise construction, and I learned the value of hard work. Really
Yes.
good people, hardworking people, family people. But then I did an internship with TBS for the Goodwill Games, right, in Seattle,
Mhm.
because Father Sullivan was my mentor was the chairman, so I was able to, hey, can I get an internship? Can I try that? Sure. But I still had to work hard. I still had to prove myself. So I made contacts, and then when I got out of college, I moved down to Silicon Valley because my parents had moved down there from Seattle to my dad. My mom and dad are in the healthcare profession. My dad was running Palo Alto Medical Foundation and I guess the Stanford Medical Center. And it's weird. I probably should have gone into medicine. I probably should have been an anesthesiologist. But I had some friends, and my sister at that time was doing like basic sales for what they called maintenance and support at Oracle. And
Mhm.
Oracle is a $700 million company at that time annually. Think about that. And so I was like, yeah, she's like, yeah, we got some recs open, so some friends with some recs open, and some good groups just to kind of get in and get started at a job. I was like, okay. And I started at Oracle, and I got hired in support, like just total frontline, basic support.
Like pick up the phone and
Yeah, it's
answer
like
the question and
and I was the Sun Solaris guy, and I started at Oracle. It's funny you can remember Oracle 7.0.13 because I remember like the 7.0.16 patch came out around Christmas time, and
see, you
we made
remember the
ornaments out of the CDs. So
you you remember the build number of when you started there.
yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
funny.
And it was weird. So then, and I started this job, and I loved the people, I loved the environment, and I dove into it, right?
Mhm.
Just dove into it, and I got it. For some reason, I understood it. It clicked with me, like the concept of the relational database. Isn't that weird? It's
Yeah.
like so I didn't do any training. So the thing was is that the other message I would give people is that if you get that opportunity, immerse yourself. Not just like, here's what I'm asked to do. What can I do? What do other people do that I think is cool? And I had so I told you there were some people that I always remember I can still look back as like being some of the most influential in my career. Not because of
Mhm.
like, they managed me or like that. And it's funny, all four of them are at Salesforce.com now. But the first one is this beautiful guy, Victor Gregoriev. And I showed up my first day at work, and I wear my tie and my slacks, like I was always raised to do. And he comes around the corner, and I think he has a shirt that says "Bite Me." He has cut off shorts, and he has sandals on, and he just points at me and he says, "Look, it's a tie man." So that first day at Oracle, he labeled me with my nickname. That for Silicon Valley for years. I'm always called Tie Man for some circles. But he's the most amazing individual as far as passion for technology, but one of those people that can explain any concept to anybody, and you get it. And
Mhm.
so he was a good mentor. He's a good friend, but I don't know if he knows it or not, but he's one of the people that really excited me about technology and what it could be. So Victor Gregoriev, big influence for me just as a buddy. And we were totally different. He was double major, CS, psychology, really smart, but he never talked down to people, and he always had time to share the joys of technology as he saw it. So that's a good thing, is like find people that are excited about what they do, and learn about what they're excited about, because it could excite you in a path that you may not have considered.
Right. Yeah, and we talk about cybersecurity on here, but that doesn't mean to limit yourself and say I only want to work in cyber. Especially when you're getting started, there are so many opportunities to learn a whole bunch of different things that will relate back to cyber at some point anyway.
I will maintain that there are roles that have the tag cybersecurity. But
Mhm.
that very first job at Oracle, I mean, that 7.0.16 patch was a security patch. It was my first experience with, having to patch something that was seen as a proactive vulnerability fix, and how it was messaged and the different roles in producing that. And it wasn't the job of the cybersecurity person. The whole everybody to me is security. We all have a job in the role of security. So whether you're tasked with the product management role or roadmap on security products, or you're communicating what is cybersecurity or zero trust, or you're just doing your job and not, and aware in a company of good cyber, stewardship as an employee. I think that it extends beyond the title.
Mhm.
So
I just want to pause here for a minute and remind our viewers and our listeners that if you do have questions, please ask them in chat. If you've got questions for John or I, please ask them in the chat, and we'll try and have our producers get us over to them. We'll try and get them answered for you. John, thanks again for sharing your story here. You talked about mentorship, right? You talked about how, and we even pointed out, at least I did, I think you had mentors pretty early on to be in college to even consider people mentors. I still don't think I did that. Like I'd look up to some of the professors, but
right,
I didn't look at it as like a mentor relationship. It was more
right.
like, you're getting paid to teach me these things, and hopefully I pass your class sort of relationship. So, and I love to talk about mentorship on here because I think it's so important. So, you had mentors. Have you mentored others?
Yeah, and I think it's never like this official label, but
Right.
there's people that I've worked with that I participate in the school's mentoring program. The COVID thing's kind of disrupted that a little bit. I got invited to go speak to campus about the same thing, like the path to the career, because it's just giving people that vision and that boost. That, hey, you can, anybody listening to this, anybody out there, anybody in school, you can work that path. There's the opportunity there. You're smart enough. It's like anybody can be in this role. It's just, I mean, I found the path just through, different tech jobs, and then paying attention to what I was interested in, what excited me, and then, seeking more than just what I was supposed to work on. Right.
Mhm.
I think that's this kind of thing, is like, ask questions, and the people that will be good mentors, will respond. And I'm very open to people. I have people approach me all the time. Hey, tell me about your path into this.
Right.
Always happy to do that. Formally or not.
Yeah, and I think that that's important to when you, at least when you get to a certain level in your career, to be able to reach back and help people out and say, or be able to say, I'm in this position now. Here's the story of how I got here. May not
Right.
work for you, but I can give you the advice that I took, right? And
Yeah.
I think it's great to have people at the very least that can tell you, here are the 3 mistakes that I learned trying to get here. Here are the 5 mistakes that I learned trying to get here. I personally learn by mistakes all the time. I'd rather learn from somebody else's mistakes than my own.
I think I
Right?
think
It's a lot less painful if I
totally
learn
agree.
from your mistakes than if I learn from my own.
And it's good to look back. I mean, I can look back, and I remember so I was at Oracle through the '90s, and it's funny because I think about, like, I refer to it as the database wars. Sybase and Informix. And then the browser wars, and then the whole, and then I think that when I moved to Austin, it was just for family reasons. Started working at this company, started by this real cool guy in Austin. He's always been a good visionary, and he's just entrepreneurial startup, leader. He started this company called Convio, Vinay Bhagat, and it was cool because it was like technology that was helping nonprofits. It wasn't like cloud, but it was that thin client layer of the browsers, kind of the interface into these legacy databases.
Mhm.
And it was like, how cool is that? Like, you can use technology to help somebody with their donations, with their team raising, with being more efficient, and impacting causes like Susan G. Komen or something like that. And but I also found that at a small company, coming from a big company, I found the cracks I had in my product management armor. These are the things I need to work on, because at a small company, when there's 28 of you, you wear a lot more hats
Mhm.
than if you're at a company like Oracle, which at that time, I mean, this is funny. My employee was 15072, so I remember that too. So even though it's like hundreds of thousands now, I mean, it's still bigger than 28. And
I'm
so
surprised you remember like your employee
I
serial
have a
number.
weird memory. It's,
I had
yeah,
I
yeah.
had that at one other company. I had that at IBM. I could not tell you my IBM serial number.
Apparently, my memory for employee numbers only scales to 5 digits, because you get to
Okay.
6 digits, I'm like, I'm out. But I think that Vinay's vision, it's like I was passionate about that, as far as the mission. And I always think of the mission. What's the mission of our customers? What's the mission of the company?
Mhm.
And And the nonprofits, they're all doing a lot of great things. It's like there's a lot of them out there that we really helped with technology, and they're actually part of Blackbaud now. But the cool thing there was that we did have to, as a small company with that, new kind of architecture. I call it like the single family home versus the apartment tenant kind of structure. But it was security was a question. How are you going to secure my data? Because people are accessing it through the internet,
Mhm.
right? So the security conversation was always imbued in something I was doing, but it became more and more as the web and came to light and grew. Cloud came to light and grew, and then things became way more connected, right? And
Mhm.
so security is become more. I'm going to make you guys laugh here, like more than just like back in the early '90s when Norton had every magazine packaged in plastic and put a CD in there to install their stuff with their AOL,
Mhm.
cassette. Total non-sustainability.
Right.
But now security is so much more, and that path has grown because of the technology um, growth, and also just everything's related, everything's connected now. And so that's just been interesting to see.
Yeah, and you have a role. I don't think we've necessarily explicitly said it. So you have a role that's a bit different than what most people think of as a cybersecurity role, and that's one of the main reasons I wanted to have you on. Is you work on the product management side for a security vendor,
Yeah.
and is this something that you saw yourself doing 5, 10, 15 years ago, or
Well, I think
how
I
did
think
that
it's I
happen?
think the evolution of security. If you look at like the last 10 years, I mean, you evolve away from like the whole antivirus thing, and the next generation antivirus to endpoint detection and response, XDR, vulnerability detection. A lot of these technologies are coming like rapidly. So,
Mhm.
I got pulled away from Dell and worked at the smaller company for about 3 years. But then when I got pulled back, it was the ask was come back and work specifically in the cybersecurity team. And
Okay.
I thought, that's how cool is that? Because I never focused 100% on security. Like, it was always an element of the product, right? It was always an element of the solution.
Hmm.
But focusing on protecting critical infrastructure around the world, protecting governments that protect the critical infrastructure, and what I believe is something that these attacks have an impact on lives in addition to the bottom line of the data. I thought that was a cool personal mission. So you can see where I kind of hook into the technology's cool, the people are cool, the mission's cool, but the applicability of, I guess, the mission, maybe it's growing up in a with parents who are both in healthcare,
Hmm.
that helping people, right? I worked at a company that like Cavio was nonprofits. This I view, yes, as security, and it's a big topic these days. But and I'll say this very seriously, everything that we do at Dell and our partners, and people that are working on security like AttackIQ around the world, it impacts lives. Life has to go on. The supply chain of food has to continue. Energy has to keep going. Healthcare. All of these things, when they get compromised, that drives me and our teams to address, because we're protecting like the global citizens and the critical infrastructure that supports that community. And that's
Yeah.
kind of that's kind of a cool thing when you put it in that context.
Well, and you brought up a couple interesting things too that I think is, I don't know if it's unique to the security community as a whole, but just the rapid response that we see for major events, right? Like when Log4j came out, how quickly did everybody jump on that? Not just vendors, but the community as a whole. There were people that said, I can't help you fix this, but I can teach you about Log4j. And so they put out
Right.
videos on it. And there's other people that would write detection rules. There's other people that would figure out inoculations. There were all sorts of different people doing different things to serve the same community and sharing it with each other,
Right.
which I've always found interesting about security. And I don't
And
know that's I don't know that it's really just insecure in the security community that you see that, but you definitely do see it in the security community.
yeah, and I think that you have the different terms, like they have the different hats that they call out, like the good people that are doing good things, and you have our adversaries, around the world. Yeah, I think that it's gotten to this point where I think people in the profession, have it's almost like we've elevated to the understanding that it's not just about product. I mean, products are part of the posture against these attacks, and really I look at it like our mission is to disrupt any kill chain from concluding in an effective attack. And that could be a lot of things. And so like at Dell, for instance, like people think, Dell security, we imbue a lot of stuff in our devices that's security related. You don't talk about a lot of it because, other people are listening besides just customers and prospects. So,
Mhm.
it's like there's a lot of things going on in the security front that aren't always just in front of you, that sit on the OS. I think so. One of the things I love, and this is cool because, in Oracle, for instance, we always had these bundles, like the personal bundle for a small business or a person can use the light database. You could have the
Mhm.
small, medium, and business bundle, and the enterprise stuff. And you always had like the thought was that more features go as you go up the bundles, right? Well,
Sure.
something like MDR, like Dell MDR, that the services team is working on, and they're providing for customers. It's like the small 50-person company can get the same technology now as the 50,000 person technology, the 50,000 person company, right? So
Mhm.
that security technology is available at scale and price, regardless what your size is. And that's been a shift in the whole thought process, because the mission is to protect, these targets, and everyone's a target, right? And that's one thing, is everybody's a target. Small companies are an island hop to a big target, right? And
Sure.
so there's been some really cool shifts, and I think people have just elevated it to the fact that we're here to adhere to that mission of protecting the global community in a very real way. And it's not all product. One product's not going to solve everything. It's people, it's process, it's solutions, and it's being proactive. Like the Attack IQ solution, it's the same thing. And back to my medical family, do you pay less by being preventative and going to your annual visits and checking out like how your body's doing,
Mhm.
or waiting for a major medical event because you don't pay attention to the ecosystem? It's the same thing as like, your your company's IT infrastructure.
Right.
Like what you're pointing out is everybody's being more preventative and proactive versus waiting for things to happen now.
Mhm. Now, being a product manager, in specifically in security, now we talked a little bit about what you currently do.
Right.
So, what skills did you have coming into this role that helped? And the inverse of that too. What skills did you find quickly like, oh crap, I'm missing these skills. I need to figure this out.
So I think it's so it was weird, like this little, and I don't do social media. Like I watch what my wife posts about what we're doing as a family. I just kind of got off it, but I did like see one time this little group about, cybersecurity professionals, and a lot of people ask like, what language do I need to learn to get into cyber? I just got my degree in cyber. What classes should I take? And I think that the skill I always brought to the table was the mindset of, okay, I know what I know, and I know what I don't know, and that comes from the liberal arts background in the education of, like, that's
Mhm.
Socrates, right? That's philosophy. I think it's Socrates, maybe Plato. I don't know. One of those two, where it's like true knowledge is knowing you know nothing. And so coming in, I think just always have the attitude that you don't know it all.
Mhm.
Everybody's starting from the same spot. You're always there to learn. And then the other thing is that I did have a lot of experience as far as, going through a lot of these evolutions of technology and associated, issues with security, usability, that kind of stuff to bring to the table. And I'm kind of a weird mix, as a product manager. Like it's kind of sometimes, I would say this, you know, people like recruiters like to bucketize people. So sometimes if a recruiter is looking for a technical product manager, they look at my resume, they're like, oh, well, you also have some business experience. You might not be a fit. Sometimes if they want like a business product manager, oh, well, you have too much technology. So I'm kind of what I consider a balanced product manager. And I think my friends in the gaming community always laugh. It's kind of like, like a character spec. I'm a balanced spec, right? So, and I believe that product managers mind the whole shop. Annual operating plan, your growth of the business, as well as the roadmap and your one end planning and your future planning. So I think, I brought a very well balanced skill set, and also the idea that I just don't know everything. And I also moved into a position where people I spoke to in the team who I was moving into, cool people, right? So, and I love Dell. Like Michael Dell has created a beautiful community at Dell, where it's just a lot of great minds from all over the world. And it's important to me that a company is sustainable and gives back to the communities where we work and live. So,
Mhm.
I think that just put a lot of momentum and wind in my sails to hit the ground running, and then dive into projects, and some of the stuff, is just like product management skills that you learn along the way. Others were, process reengineering, and others like we're working on stuff, that's industry leading stuff. So there is no precedent.
So if somebody out there listening right now says, I want to be a product manager, not
Right.
necessarily in security, but I want to be a product manager, what are the top 3 to 5 skills you think they should focus on that would benefit them the most?
Oh, that's a tough one. I mean, I think I think I had the benefit of working in a waterfall development environment for a long time before Agile was even a thing. So I think that people always want to get into the Agile development flow, which is really great and effective. But I think that dive it into like the two methodologies and the way things were done in the past. I think I'm a really big fan of learning from history. You know, like some of the applying some of the product management life cycle planning techniques from early ideation all the way through launch and iterations after that and sustaining. I think that writing is a very big skill. Like when I see like candidates from colleges, I go through them with some colleagues in the past. A lot of them have good technology chops. A lot of them are part of the same clubs. A lot of them volunteer. I love the ones that blog, like that can communicate the concepts, because
Yeah.
a lot of us are like really really bright, inquisitive people.
I think I
And
think
writing, I think, yeah, I say writing. Learn to
yeah, I
write.
want to
Learn to communicate. Learn to be concise. In that, like the Amazon 6 pages or less, always intrigues me.
Yeah, I want to double click on that.
Okay.
Writing is incredibly important. Like
Yeah.
if you are a good writer, you can go very far in a career because you have the ability to communicate well
Right.
with other people, and you can do it on kind of an easy basis for you, right? Like I if I can't write well, I will have a hard time communicating all of the cool things that I know
Right.
in my head and sharing them with other people. But if I can write well, other people will see that, which helps build my personal brand and my career.
Right.
So writing is incredibly important. And you talked about blogs, right? Having a blog. If you're a student, if you're a cybersecurity student
Oh
right
yeah.
now, I highly recommend you have a blog and start
Yeah. I
putting
mean, I may
together
not like. I
bodies of
may not
work.
agree with your viewpoint, but you've got a viewpoint, and it can be discussed. Right. That's a great use of social media. Is like WordPress is like. If I had that in college, that would have been great. I
Yeah.
mean, we had this Hilda Bryant professor that I had. She was journalism. She was an Emmy award winning journalist. She was one of the first ones on the ground in the Soviet Afghanistan war.
Mhm.
And I swear, for a whole quarter, she would bring in newspaper articles with the first paragraph cut off. Because if you know anything about newspaper articles and AP stuff, that first 2 sentences are called the lead,
Yeah.
right? It should catch you. It should get your attention. And we spent all quarter. It's like, here's your latest thing. It's like wax on, wax off. Here's your latest article. Now write a lead. And that's why I always liked Twitter when it first came out. The 140 characters. You had to be concise,
You can't bury the
right?
lead, as they say.
Yeah. So I think that like you say that what's one of the things that helped me from that degree is like, yeah, and I still have to work on it because I'm an expressive person, but I love writing. And I think sometimes when you find the different formats that people can absorb, the written word is one. A lot of people use PowerPoint and visuals. And one thing I'd also say to any product manager is that understand your audience. Not everybody absorbs textual learning styles. Not everybody is a visual person. Balance the communication. And I still work on that today,
Yeah,
right?
and so another piece of advice that I'll add on to that with is start with the text, right? Like start with your writing, and then when you have something good, build it into other mediums as well, right? So take that blog post that you wrote and turn it into a white paper with some graphics on it.
It doesn't
Take
need to
that,
be long, like 700
right?
words. Just
Yeah,
boom.
take that white paper, and every time you go to an interview, print it out and give it to the people interviewing
Right.
you.
I still do that.
Also,
I link like examples of what I've written, stuff like this, because I mean I think that people get a sense for who you are. Obviously I've always been the extrovert, and I love just talking about stuff because it's exciting. But yeah, I need to work on being more concise. That's
well,
always something I do work on. It's just, but that's a good thing. What do you need to work on? What do you need to keep improving on?
yeah, so I mean, self-awareness is important too, right? And the fact that you can sit there and go, yeah, that's something I probably need to work on.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of people that can do that,
Or like
especially
just getting
on a live
getting
stream
like
show on the internet, just
I mean
publicly
like
be like,
getting
yeah,
like
I'm not good
the
at this.
yeah, just get, I mean, well, and that's the thing is know what you don't know. And that makes it's a pretty powerful thing. Companies, I mean, a lot of the great executives, a lot of the people I can just point to that I know around the industry, Yeah, they're always looking to move forward, and I think just improve on things. Like for me, I have so much stuff going on in my head all the time. Like just be able to stop and get that down on slides and refine it and that sort of thing. It's an ongoing objective for me. So there's always stuff to work on. And if
Yeah,
somebody tells you whether, I mean, it's like you're playing a game or you're in a career. If somebody says, "Yeah, I know it all," it's like, well, then they should give up, because we're always progressing, always
right.
learning, right? And
Yeah,
everybody,
life
the
would be
intern
boring
and
if
up
you
to the
knew
CEO
everything.
have something to offer. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, life would be pretty boring if you knew everything already,
Yeah, that would be bad.
right? Where's the fun in that? Um, and I've talked about on here before too how I'm constantly learning and constantly doing professional development. But honestly, most of my professional development isn't even technical stuff. Like
Right.
I don't spend a ton of time on technical professional development. I don't know. I definitely still spend time learning about cybersecurity and updates in technology and things like that. But for the most part, my job kind of just keeps that stuff fresh in my head. Where I tend to focus my time is more on new skills that I'm having to learn,
Right.
leadership, communication, right? I recognize this past year that my communication could use some work, and there's so many different aspects of communication. So, certain aspects of my communication could need some work. So there's things like that for me. What skills are you currently working on, or that you do you have a skill that you're always working on, or do you have anything right now that you're just starting out, or that you're continuing to work on?
So I think I'm wrapping up my CISSP, which is I would say in cyber, the tenure you have to have in the industry in different roles and security. It's nice that they have kind of that requirement. We have a great bunch of people at Dell who are CISSPs and in security, and we have a biweekly thing where I think we call it Go Big Security or Big Security, where it's just kind of like the homebrew club for security, and everybody kind of can present or whatever. So that's been really good as far as just the different viewpoints and different, like, co-mentoring from my peers. But I had the goal to knock out that certification, because to me, just the proficiencies and all those different pillars of the CISSP is something I want to achieve. I don't need to put the letters behind my name, but I think that certification is deep and broad, and it's probably the one I would say is highly relevant to what we're doing.
Yeah, that's a certification that I've told people coming up into cybersecurity when they ask me, and it depends on where they are
Yeah.
in their career. But they'll ask me about the CISSP, and I tell them it's a great certification to take to find your weak points in security, right? Because
Yep.
you've got these. I can't remember how many domains there are, like 9, 10 different security domains that you're quizzed on CISSP, and you get a real quick hit on these different domains, and you can quickly tell, like, oh yeah, I'm not very good with this thing. And for me, like,
Yeah.
and I've
Humbling,
talked about
right?
this too, like encryption every time is encryption with me.
Yep.
Like it is humbling to go, especially, I've been in security for 15 years. I have my associate's degree is in cybersecurity. It was one of the first in cybersecurity. And I still to this day have a problem with encryption questions. Like I could go take the encryption part of the CISSP, and I guarantee you I would fail it. Guaranteed.
Yeah, and that's okay. I mean, and I think the other thing I would say is, I'm not afraid to ask questions in meetings. I mean, people like speak in TLAs nonstop these days, and if you're like, "What's a TLA?" It's a triple letter acronym. Right? So it's like like it's and that's what I learned also in the role that I had, the education was, I learned we had a lot of the journalism is a lot about AP rules. And one of the AP rules is spell it out on first usage and then use an acronym. And one of the things I would say that everybody in the tech industry needs to work on is spell it out first. Don't assume everybody knows what you're talking about, and then use the acronym.
Yeah, especially
Because
with a
if I'm
lot
in a
of
meeting, I'm like, what is it?
overlap.
It's like acronym, acronym, acronym. I'm like, what does it mean? And it's okay. Don't be afraid to ask questions.
Mhm.
And all your peers should be supportive of asking questions, because that's how people get on the same page. That's how you align on things. That's how you move forward in your understanding of things. And if somebody asks you a question about something that they may not know from one of your presentations or whatever, take the time to, be a mentor in that one moment and explain it to them. It's okay, because like I said, we don't know everything. It's always just a learning process, and I think that's people can get over that. We'd probably go a lot farther and more agile than a lot of us do.
I agree.
So.
Well, John, it's been great talking to you. We're coming up to a point of wrapping up. Is there anything you wanted to share that maybe we didn't hit on today? Any advice that you have for our viewers?
Yeah, I'd say, one thing that's always nice is, I mean, I have people that reach out to me on LinkedIn, but just like a real thought out, reason why they're reaching out, and that's cool, right? And don't be afraid to do that. If you find somebody that's at a company you're interested in, if you find somebody in a role you're interested in, approach it like, hey, I'd like to have a 20-minute mentoring conversation with you, and send the 3 or 4 questions. It's kind of like almost like an analyst inquiry call, right? Where you're talking to Forrester's land. But then, people are happy to share their paths because we've all been through, a few things, And I think I probably, in addition to Victor Gregoriev, who I called out at Salesforce, I got to say that the other 3, I'm going to call them out. Mark Benioff. I never met the guy, but I remember at Oracle when he said in front of everybody at this global meeting that client server needs to go away. The browser is the new interface application, and that was September of 1995. I thought that really stuck with me. And you look where Mark went with Salesforce. I mean, and he's got such a great culture that he leads. And so, like, between him and Michael and what they do for employees in the communities, I mean, just a fascinating guy. Then the other 2, Salesforce again, Rob Acker, Salesforce.org CEO, grew up with the guy, sweet guy, and he has that mission of technology and communities around the world. And then there's the final one at Salesforce again. This really great, one of the best professionals I've ever worked with, Marie Rosecrans. She was in the group I started with at Oracle, and I will look for her to be a CEO someday. But those 4 I always think about, like, what I'm doing, how can I grow, and the strengths that each of those people have in their roles. And it's funny that they're all at Salesforce. Isn't that funny? And they didn't start off all there at the same time.
Yeah. Well,
But
I mean,
I would say, identify people that you think, yeah, they've got a strength that really drives me. And 30 years later, those 4 people, whether they know it or not, I think about their strengths and what they contribute and how they treat people and how they work with people and how can I be a better professional. And then I apply that to the cybersecurity realm, And it's cybersecurity is not geeky. Cybersecurity mission is very human. What we're doing is protecting lives. So if you believe in that mission, whether you're a marketing person who wants to get the concepts clear to people's heads, whether you're a technical person, whether you're passionate about enabling customers as a consultant or in sales, there's more roles than engineering. But what we do to protect these infrastructures is important. Yes. And that's what I would say.
For sure. Thank you so much, John. For all of our viewers, please join our Discord to continue the conversation. We'll be back in 2 weeks with a new guest for you. Thank you very much for joining Hack Your Career.
Yeah, thanks. And anybody's welcome to reach out to me with any questions. I'm here and happy to be a resource.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.